Blake Lively is dumb, and I mean really dumb. She has told on herself so many times, and people digging up old videos. Take a listen to her.
Pink sticker where I'm supposed to go and say what I'm supposed to say, but I also knew that that wasn't fulfilling for me, that I wanted to be a part of the storytelling, that I wanted.
Marvel's surprise lawsuit against Blake Lively sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Fans were blindsided when the entertainment giant publicly sued the actress, a rare move for a studio known for keeping legal matters under wraps. Sources say the case involves allegations that Lively mishandled confidential information related to the Deadpool franchise, with some insiders hinting she may have leaked details to influence public opinion amid her own controversies. For an actress long known for professionalism, the accusation of such a high-stakes breach stunned many. The unexpected clash between Marvel and Lively quickly ignited a media firestorm, signaling the seriousness of the situation and breaking the studio's usual code of silence. Speculation had been swirling for months about growing tension in Blake Lively's professional world, though few imagined it would lead to a legal standoff with one of Hollywood's most powerful studios. The drama didn't start with Marvel. It began when Lively signed on to star in a highly anticipated film adaptation directed by Justin Baldoni. Fans were thrilled by the collaboration, expecting a heartfelt cinematic triumph, but excitement quickly waned as reports of on-set friction surfaced. Baldoni, who co-wrote the script and intended to star in the film, wielded significant creative control. Insiders say Lively felt sidelined, with her input repeatedly overlooked. As tensions mounted, she reportedly grew frustrated by Baldoni's dominating presence. What began as a promising project unraveled, and when Lively spoke out publicly about the on-set issues, the conflict escalated, eventually intertwining with Marvel and culminating in a lawsuit that no one saw coming.
I'm supposed to go and say what I'm supposed to say, but I also knew that that wasn't fulfilling for me, that I wanted to be a part of the storytelling, that I wanted to be a part of the narrative, whether that be in the writing, in the costume design, in creating the character. And sometimes I had directors or producers or writers who would welcome that and invite that once they saw that I was able to offer that. And sometimes I would have people who really resented that because they were like, we just hired you to be an actor. Yet when I went in the meetings, I would just seem like I'm just there to be the actor and ready to get the gig. I wouldn't reveal that I actually need to have authorship in order to feel fulfilled. So I think that for them, sometimes that might have felt like a rug pull because you're you're trying to assert yourself into something that we didn't hire you to do. And so it was a really strange position to be in because I felt like I don't want to just be an actor. I want to have more authorship. So I think that it's about knowing what I want and what.
Blake Lively accused director Justin Baldoni of media sabotage, claiming he planted damaging stories portraying her as difficult and overbearing on set. The allegation dominated headlines, sending fresh shockwaves through Hollywood. Given the industry's long history of powerful figures shaping media narratives, many were quick to believe her, and fans rallied in her support, especially those aware of the pattern of women being unfairly vilified in entertainment. But the story soon took a dramatic turn. Baldoni and his team responded with receipts, entire chains of text messages that painted a very different picture. Rather than being the victim of a smear campaign, the evidence suggested Blake may have been orchestrating the narrative herself. The leaked messages reportedly included veiled threats and references to leveraging her powerful network, allegedly including her husband, Ryan Reynolds, star of Marvel's billion-dollar Deadpool franchise. The revelations stunned the public. Was Blake the real puppet master, using her clout to control the story and manipulate outcomes? What began as a seemingly clear-cut case of a female star pushing back against male dominance suddenly appeared far more complicated. Whispers of high-stakes phone calls with top-tier media insiders and cryptic references to dragons, Hollywood code for untouchable power players, spread rapidly. Suddenly, the spotlight wasn't just on Baldoni, it was squarely on Blake. Public perception of Blake flipped. Once seen as the victim, she was now under scrutiny as a possible instigator in a mounting storm of controversy. What had begun as a messy but standard Hollywood feud escalated dramatically when it spilled into Marvel territory, specifically Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds, celebrated for transforming the character into a cultural phenomenon, was one of Marvel's most bankable stars, his wit, charm, and creative vision woven into every aspect of the franchise. But as Blake's conflict with Baldoni intensified, whispers emerged that her dispute was dragging Ryan and Marvel's closely guarded secrets into the fray. Cracks began to appear in what had once seemed an unshakable alliance. Suddenly, Deadpool, Blake, and Marvel found themselves at the center of Hollywood's most unexpected power struggle.
Baldoni's legal team thinks so, saying the character is a deliberate attempt to mock, harass, intimidate, and bully the star.
Can we just be done?
Oh, we're just getting started.
E.T. obtained the 5-page demand letter Justin's attorney sent to Marvel and Disney asking that they preserve all relevant documents relating to the development of the character. The evidence linking Baldoni to Nice Pool? Well, there's the man bun, a hairstyle Justin had for years, and references to body shaming, something Blake accuses Justin of doing.
She just had a baby too and can't even tell.
I don't think you're supposed to say that.
That's okay. I identify as a feminist.
Here I am doing my part, trying to be a...
Marvel's legal bombshell. Blake Lively accused of leaking Deadpool secrets amid a high-stakes Hollywood power struggle. Insiders began whispering a shocking possibility. Confidential Deadpool intel may have been used to reshape Blake's public narrative. Could she really have disclosed classified Marvel material to deflect negative press? At first, it seemed far-fetched, until Marvel's legal team quietly launched an investigation. Lawyers meticulously reviewed documents and communications to determine whether Blake had accessed or revealed sensitive information about the franchise's future. The idea that Marvel's prized property could become a weapon in a personal Hollywood feud seemed unthinkable, but the theory persisted. Even fans were left questioning how a Deadpool leak could serve Blake in the midst of a film controversy. The simplest explanation for the dispute was also the most plausible. Any leaked tidbit, whether a surprise cameo, a major plot twist, or a line from an unfinished script, would dominate headlines. And headlines meant distraction. If Blake had orchestrated a leak, it would have been a masterstroke, misdirection on a Hollywood scale. The precision was chilling. What better way to shift attention from behind-the-scenes drama than by dropping a Marvel bombshell? Imagine the frenzy over a rumored Avenger appearance, fan theories, social media explosions, and relentless press coverage. Suddenly, the focus wouldn't be on Blake's feud, but on what might happen next in Deadpool. Given Ryan Reynolds' central role in the franchise, it wasn't a stretch to assume Blake had access to highly sensitive Marvel material, intel typically safeguarded by ironclad NDAs and top-tier security. What began as quiet speculation exploded into a full-blown legal inferno when Marvel did something it had never done before: file a formal lawsuit. The studio, famously secretive about internal disputes, issued a rare public statement. While it didn't name names, Marvel alleged that an individual had deliberately misused classified intellectual property tied to a flagship franchise. Insiders quickly confirmed the target was Blake Lively. According to sources, Marvel believed Blake had either leaked or threatened to leak Deadpool secrets as part of a calculated effort to deflect from her ongoing professional disputes, specifically her clash with director Justin Baldoni. The fallout was immediate. Hollywood went into meltdown. Marvel had never sued a major star's spouse before, especially not someone as high profile as Blake or so closely tied to Ryan Reynolds, one of the studio's most valuable assets. This wasn't about a paycheck, scheduling conflict, or contract breach. This was sabotage from within. Marvel believed someone with inside access had turned their golden ticket into a bargaining chip. The implications were staggering. If true, it represented a breach of trust between Marvel and one of its most prized collaborators. Celebrated power couples were under scrutiny. Was the Reynolds-Lively empire unraveling under the weight of these allegations?
Blake's camp moved swiftly, issuing a strongly worded denial. Her representatives insisted she had never had access to sensitive Marvel material, let alone leaked it, and called the lawsuit baseless, accusing Marvel of scapegoating her to cover broader internal leaks. But the problem lingered, the now infamous text messages from her feud with Justin Baldoni. Circulating in industry circles, the messages portrayed a side of Blake that clashed with her clean-cut public image, suggesting she was no stranger to behind-the-scenes strategizing and wielding influence when it served her interests. The question was no longer just whether Blake had access to Deadpool's secrets, it was how far she might go. The situation had grown beyond a legal dispute. It had become a full-blown battle over power, influence, and the blurry ethical lines that define Hollywood's elite. Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds, usually the master of viral comebacks and crisis-diffusing charm, was silent. The man who could turn any PR disaster into a meme-worthy moment had vanished from the conversation. The silence spoke volumes. Speculation ran wild. Was Ryan working behind the scenes to contain the damage, protecting his career or his wife? Insiders suggested the pressure placed him in an impossible position: defend Blake and risk fracturing his relationship with Marvel, or stay neutral and signal cracks in his marriage. Either choice was fraught. As the legal storm raged, Justin Baldoni, the man who had unknowingly lit the fuse, found himself at the center of a wildfire he never intended to spark. His original goal had been simple: defend his creative vision and push back against Blake's claims of controlling behavior on set. Instead, he found himself fielding questions far removed from his film. Carefully choosing his words, he reiterated that he only sought to set the record straight about their collaboration, but the narrative had already spun beyond his control. A behind-the-scenes feud had snowballed into a Marvel-level scandal, threatening careers, reputations, and one of Hollywood's most iconic partnerships. For the first time in its history, Marvel made it clear even the most powerful names weren't above accountability.
Representing that from the outset, and if people are into that and want to collaborate with me for all I feel like I need to offer and bring to a job, then those are the people I should collaborate with. And if I see that it's people who are, whether this is in business or acting or whatever it is, where it's people who I can see that feels like that's stepping on their territory, that's not going to ultimately be a fulfilling relationship for either one of us. So I think it's about being upfront about like knowing what you actually need versus just like trying to get the job and then, you know, once you're in it, sort of revealing the scope of your sort of needs to be, you know, fulfilled.
It's lead with your authentic self, right? And in terms of unapologetically, versus trying to hide it, it is what makes you great and brings out your best work.
But it's hard because you feel so replaceable, you know, and people tell you all the time, you know, how replaceable you are. So it's like, you know, I have to do the thing to get the job. So it's tricky, you know.
Zigzagging.
And sometimes you lose the job, you know. But like, if you did it and you weren't fulfilled anyway, then it wasn't.
The Marvel vs. Blake Lively lawsuit: how a Hollywood feud became a franchise-altering crisis. In interviews, Justin Baldoni admitted he was stunned when Marvel, the entertainment behemoth known for its tight-lipped operations, suddenly entered the fray. What he had once dismissed as a typical Hollywood clash had escalated into something far more dangerous. If Blake Lively had truly weaponized Deadpool's secrets to manipulate public narratives, the stakes had soared beyond anything Baldoni could have imagined. Despite the media frenzy, Justin remained focused on finishing his film, carefully distancing himself from a legal war that had spun wildly out of control. But Marvel wasn't backing down. Their lawsuit hinted at serious breaches of confidentiality, contractual violations, and potential financial damages. While the studio withheld specifics, legal experts speculated this wasn't just about money. Marvel was likely seeking a court-ordered injunction to prevent any further leaks. This wasn't merely a lawsuit, it was a warning shot to anyone who dared tamper with Marvel's intellectual property. Then came the most explosive possibility: depositions. If the case advanced, Marvel's legal team could demand phone records, emails, and personal communications from both Blake and Ryan Reynolds, aiming to determine whether Deadpool's secrets had been used as leverage.
Suddenly, deeply personal information from a famously private Hollywood couple could become public record. What had started as a tense on-set dispute between Blake and Baldoni was rapidly evolving into a high-stakes power struggle with ramifications across Hollywood. The dispute had mutated into a full-blown legal and reputational crisis, threatening to reshape A-list alliances and shake Marvel's billion-dollar empire. Could Ryan Reynolds, the face of Deadpool, realistically continue in the role if his wife was accused of sabotaging the studio that made him a global superstar? Would Marvel tolerate keeping him on board if his personal life jeopardized their bottom line? The answer was no longer just sensational, it was seismic. Fans were bitterly divided. On one side were Blake's loyal supporters, unable to believe she would risk destroying the franchise that had resurrected Ryan's career. Deadpool hadn't just been a hit, it had revived him from a string of underwhelming roles to one of the most profitable superhero franchises ever. Why would Blake jeopardize that? Others pointed to the damning text messages from her feud with Baldoni, evidence of behind-the-scenes scheming and media manipulation. To those critics, Blake wasn't just an actress, she was a strategist, and if steering attention away from herself required sacrificing Marvel's secrecy, it was a calculated move. Their theory gained traction when her own attorney abruptly withdrew from the case, citing irreconcilable differences over her version of events. Had her legal team lost faith in her defense? Then came the receipts. Small entertainment outlets revealed they'd received exclusive tips about Deadpool cameos, plot twists, and rumored rewrites. At first, it seemed like harmless Hollywood gossip, until someone connected the dots. Marvel's lawsuit reportedly contained time-stamped evidence linking the leaks directly to the period when Blake's media backlash peaked. If the timeline held up in court, it would be devastating. At the height of her dispute with Baldoni, as headlines swirled, Deadpool's secrets began leaking. That wasn't coincidence, it was one of the most meticulously timed Hollywood leaks in memory. As the details snowballed, the media firestorm exploded. Podcasts, tabloids, and gossip Twitter threads all asked the same question. Had Blake Lively gone rogue? Days passed. No apology, no settlement, no definitive answer. Marvel held firm. The studio made it clear. Leaks would not be tolerated. Confidentiality was sacred. Protecting their intellectual property wasn't negotiable. It was their top priority. Insiders reaffirmed this to the press, stating flatly that their position was unwavering. In court, Blake could slowly rebuild her image, but Hollywood has a long memory. Even the suspicion of manipulation could poison future opportunities. Marvel was taking a gamble too. Press too hard, and fans might see them as vindictive. Move too cautiously, and they risked appearing weak. That they filed the lawsuit at all suggested confidence in their case. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni quietly wrapped production on his film. The man who unknowingly ignited this firestorm kept his distance. When asked about the lawsuit, he called it surreal to see a personal disagreement spiral into a global spectacle. Even his own crew admitted they never expected the creative tension to escalate this far. The reality was unavoidable. This wasn't just about Blake anymore. It wasn't even just about Ryan, Justin, or Deadpool. It was about trust, power, influence, and the fragile line between public image and private strategy. Could Ryan's connection to Blake cost him the very role that redefined his career? Could Marvel recast Deadpool if they deemed his ties too risky? Would Blake take the fight all the way to court or fold under pressure? Insiders whispered she was considering a radical move, offering full access to her phone logs and personal devices to prove she hadn't directly leaked anything, hoping to pressure Marvel into backing down. Skeptics weren't convinced. Those who had studied her texts from the Baldoni conflict pointed out something chilling. Blake had a knack for implying things without ever stating them outright. If Marvel's investigation revealed a pattern of innuendo or second-hand leaks, the case could hinge on one question: deniability or calculated intent. For fans, the conflict was deeply personal. Blake Lively had long been admired for her elegance, humor, and carefully curated authenticity. but they were also die-hard Marvel loyalists, and Deadpool, Ryan's defining role, was too beloved to risk tainting with scandal. With no resolution in sight, one truth remained. This was no longer just another Hollywood feud. It was a high-stakes war capable of reshaping careers, redefining franchises, and rewriting public allegiances. Marvel was locked in a legal showdown with one of the industry's most visible stars, and fans were caught in the middle, torn between a studio they trusted and a star they adored. Online debates erupted. Was Marvel going too far, or absolutely right to defend the crown jewels of their cinematic empire? Hollywood insiders labeled the saga a cautionary tale, a textbook example of what happens when major personalities collide with billion-dollar properties. One day, Blake Lively was a respected actress caught in a creative dispute. The next, she was the target of a lawsuit from the most powerful studio in the world. The harsh truth: not even A-listers are immune when the stakes involve the secrets of a billion-dollar franchise. Whether the case ends in a quiet settlement or an explosive trial, the fallout is already changing the game. Hollywood is watching closely. One wrong move, one misjudged power play, and even the most untouchable stars can find themselves fighting for survival. Even at the top, stardom is never guaranteed.